News.
Sheila Krumholz is Executive Director of the Center for Responsive Politics, which runs the Open Secrets website. She joins us now as we continue our discussion on money in politics and campaign fundraising. But first, Sheila Krumholz, for those not familiar with your website, explain what Open Secrets is and the work that you do there.
Sure, happy to. Open Secrets is the website of our organization, the Center for Responsive Politics. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit research group that tracks money in politics, and we advocate transparency because, of course, we can't do what we do if we don't have access to the information, much as the press and the voters can't do what they need to do to inform people and hold their elected officials accountable if they don't have access to the information. So on our website, Open Secrets, you can find all kinds of information about where the money is coming from and going to, in what quantities, what the trends are over time, how our campaign finance system is evolving, and we try to present the data so that we can answer whatever questions people may bring to us.
So we talked a lot about the Citizens United case so far in this program. How did the work that you do and the Open Secrets website, how did that change after Citizens United?
It's become far more difficult now. We have to not only accept the data that is reported to the Federal Election Commission and provided to us, which is a big enough chore in and of itself because we're constantly gathering the new data and coding it by industry and standardizing it by organizations so that we can present it in lots and lots of different ways on our site. We're also now going to the filings of politically active nonprofits with the IRS, and those are not filed very frequently, so when they are, we grab them, and then we have to do the sleuthing and the digging to find out where those groups are getting their money. Much of that is simply not available, though.
So in terms of the number of groups that you're tracking, can you give a sense of the numbers and how much that changed before Citizens United and after?
Well, there are hundreds of thousands of organizations represented in the data. These are based on contributions from PACs, as well as from individual donations, which are itemized, those donations of more than $200 going to candidates, PACs, and parties. The data that we're getting on politically active nonprofits is a drop in the bucket by comparison, but these are the organizations that have really skyrocketed to the top in terms of the amounts of money that they're raising and spending, and they can target it almost with a laser-like strike on the most competitive races. So they can really have an enormous impact, even though there are not nearly as many of them as compared with the hard money, the reported contributions going to candidates and parties.
The terms we hear about outside interest groups, super PACs, regular PACs, 527 organizations, 501c4 groups. When you do your job to try to bring transparency to this process, what is the toughest group to crack there?
501c nonprofits. So 501c3s are charitable or educational organizations like the Center for Responsive Politics. And these are organizations that are mostly not political. They have a very, very limited ability to be political. But 501c4s are social welfare organizations. These, along with 501c6 business leagues, like the Chamber of Commerce, can be much more political. And some organizations, especially following Citizens United, have been created apparently to be primarily political and seem to be violating the terms of tax-exempt rules to act like political committees, which should report to the Federal Election Commission, but pretend that they are social welfare organizations or business leagues, so tax-exempt organizations that need not disclose their donors. So that's the crux of the matter. That's the real issue here, is that we have these opaque organizations pretending to be something that they are not in order to deliver secrecy, anonymity to their sources.
If you have questions about these groups, about tracking money in politics and money in the political campaigns, not just the presidential, but remember the House and Senate campaigns that are going on this year as well. Phone lines are open in this segment. Republicans 202-748-8001, Democrats 202-748-8000, Independents 202-748-8002. Let's get to the 2016 cycle. What are the most interesting storylines that you're tracking when it comes to campaign finance?
I think what's important to note at this point is the incredible increase in funds raised and spent by outside organizations. So these are the 501c4s and 6s, the politically active nonprofits, as well as super PACs, which are technically independent expenditure-only committees. They cannot give to candidates and parties. They can spend independently of those campaigns, and they can use unlimited sums from unlimited sources to do that. The big issue, of course, is that many of these organizations are very closely tied to the candidates. They're staffed by their former top lieutenants of the campaigns, and they are even created by the candidates themselves. And enormous sums of money are gushing into and through these organizations, and again are targeted at some of the most competitive races, the presidential race, of course, as well as competitive House and Senate races. What we're seeing is that already at this point, $300 million has been spent as compared to, and that's 6 times what was spent at this point in the cycle in 2014 and 3 times what was spent in 2012. So we're seeing big increases, bigger injections of funds coming from these purportedly independent groups, which often are acting much as extensions of the campaign instead of truly independent groups. Additionally, non-disclosing groups, so groups that have that derive their funds from secret sources, have spent more than $21 million so far, compared with just $6 million at this point in 2012, the last presidential election cycle. And that's only going to soar if the patterns from 2012, from this point in that cycle to the end of that cycle, hold.
When we hear the term dark money, that's what we're referring to there?
Yes. So typically, generally, politically active nonprofit organizations. Most nonprofits are not politically active. They're boys and girls clubs. They're research organizations like ours, or charitable organizations. And some are advocating, they lobby on clean water, or whatever the issue may be. But what we're seeing now is a different strain of politically active nonprofits, which are pushing, if not blowing past, the line of political activity that is allowed under the tax-exempt rules.